For your listening pleasure, we give you part 2 of reality TV. Enjoy. This is The World According to Jen and Carolyn.
Qualities to this. Now, granted, I think we just pointed out how things are relative and everything is not as it seems and can't be easily summarized as good or bad. That's too simplistic. Yeah. But, you know, I think it's important to have some context here. So, you know, this same article, Michigan Daily, points out something that I think is important, exposure and representation, which really goes into... We touched on it briefly, but in terms of Pedro, I just think it's so important. And this author says reality shows have the ability to expose viewers to communities and people that otherwise would not have much representation, like TLC's I Am Jazz, which stars a transgender woman named Jazz and follows her and her family throughout her life. Didn't it start with her being a little girl?
She's a little girl.
Aww.
And it's a beautiful show, and it's very well done. Yeah. And it's very... I think, again, I'm sure I can't speak for that community, but, you know, it gives context to that beautiful person's experience.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. And think about sitting, you know, and I don't want to speak ill of some place I know nothing about, but like the Midwest where you may not know any trans people. Sure. And this is your exposure and you're getting a sense of what this little girl and her family have gone through on this journey. Yeah. You know, same thing with Little People, Big World.
I did love that show.
You know, if you haven't watched it, it spots like the mom and the dad are named Bill and Jen.
That's right.
Oh, wait, no. I'm sorry. That was, is it that show or is it another one with Little People? Anyway,
there's a couple.
There's a show with Little People where the couple is named Bill and Jen.
That's
and
cute.
I thought that was adorable. Anyway, I digress. Big time. But, you know, of course it's dangerous, as we mentioned, to only have one person or group be a spokesperson for an entire community or people. But reality TV really can offer some marginalized groups a platform and can create a path for viewers to gain a more nuanced understanding. Yeah. This was one of the arguments we pointed to in the Jerry Springer episode as well. You know, it wasn't the best light on like the trans community, for instance.
Not at all.
But for some folks, and we talked about trans folks or people who had yet to figure out that they were trans being like, oh my God, I can relate to this person. Yeah. You know, so it's an unintended, maybe positive effect.
I can see that,
Yeah, interesting. We can delve really deeply into this, but we're not because we only have so much time. So this is from a publication called The Perspective. According to Cynthia Frisbee, a researcher at the University of Missouri, Columbia, reality TV has a positive impact on viewers. Frisbee surveyed a random sample of 19 to 29-year-olds to measure their mood. The participants then watched an episode of Joe Millionaire. That's a great show. A reality TV show that focuses around 20 women flying to France in hopes of falling in love with a millionaire.
How did I never go on any of those shows?
You should have been on that show.
I don't want to compete with other women.
I had a friend who...
I'll beat you all.
What was it? The Bachelor? Remember The Bachelor when
it was here?
Lived in Napa?
Yeah.
He was her neighbor.
Oh, yeah, cool.
He lived right next door.
That's very
in Pacific Heights in California Street. Anyway, so Joe Millionaire, they looked at that 20 women flying to France. That'd be a lot. In hopes of falling in love with a millionaire when he's actually a construction worker from humble beginnings. Construction workers make bank, ladies. Frisbee then surveyed the participants on their mood once again and found that watching the show resulted in a positive increase in mood. So shows like The Bachelor and The Real Housewives apparently have the same effect. Interesting. Yeah. Besides bringing a positive mood, reality TV shows like Teen Mom and 16 and Pregnant have showcased the hardships of becoming a young parent. In 2009, teen pregnancy actually dropped to an all-time low in the past 70 years. Just the year after, in 2010, the National Campaign to Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy administered a survey in which 87% of respondents who watched 16 and Pregnant felt that they were educated about becoming a parent at a young age.
Dude, that show made me not want to have kids.
Hell no. Yeah. But that's interesting because you go, well, was it that show? And it's like, well, there was a survey administered and actually it was that show. You're like, oh, we actually have the data and the research to back this up. So reality TV does excel in showcasing the lives of others, which can be extremely beneficial when raising awareness for mental illness, for instance. For example, I have issues with the show, but Hoarders Buried Alive is one of the examples they gave. But yeah, think about how many people now know about hoarding disorder who wouldn't have otherwise known about it.
Right.
And we have talked about whether or not this is a good or a bad thing based on the way that the show is filmed and, displayed.
What do they call this? Double-edged sword?
It's a double-edged sword. And it's, I'm a big fan of saying, and the older I get, the more I feel this way, multiple truths can be exist in the same place.
Well, and yes, absolutely. Two or more things can be true at the same time. Many emotions can be true at the same time. And I think too, Jen, that, what's problematic is when we have these shows without conversations.
Okay.
And, again, I actually really, one of the things the Real Housewives and the Real World did this too, and they would do these reunion shows.
Yeah.
And you'd get to actually have this sort of like, okay, they watched it and now they're commenting or they're going, that did not come out right. Usually it's a hot mess and there's like 3 or 4, reunion shows. Yeah. You're like, okay, that's overkill. But, do you remember in Ferris Bueller when he breaks the third wall?
Yes, of course.
That was my favorite moment. And I always, and also too, when Ducky does that in Pretty in Pink, like looks at the camera. So I think, like you said, not all this is, we're not shitting on reality TV.
Yeah.
And again, some of them are absolutely, there's problematic things in everything. You're not, nothing is pure.
Right.
And, but from a psych perspective, is there an upside to consuming some of this? Well, I actually, why I mentioned the third wall is something about that moment when Ducky looked at me and was like, raises his eyes and you're like, Ducky, go for it,
Yeah.
And you're just, this feeling of, I think, loneliness and being connected to, quote, character that you're seeing. There's something to that. And I do think that people absolutely develop relationships with those that they wouldn't otherwise know. And again, I include relationship as that fundamental, just, I see you, you see me. They don't really see you.
Dude, you went to the Vampire Diaries convention with me. Look at how many people there
felt seen. All ages.
Yeah. And the most beautiful thing about that convention, I think, was there were so many people with visible disabilities.
Yes.
And this was their show and their community. And it was a beautiful thing.
Well, and you look at that even with like a Comic-Con, like you find networks of people who then talk about this. It's
right.
Just, the same way that I loved, going to my friends' houses and we trade, who's going to make the cheese platters, for the watching the Real World, and it's, I don't think we're eating cheese platters. Then it would have been like, who's picking up Taco Bell?
Right. Hell yeah. That'd be today.
Who's getting Panda Express from Stonestown Mall?
Yeah.
But we do develop these relationships with other people and, or maybe they're unlike us.
Yeah.
And it gives us something to have a sense of something about. And I think, for, again, a younger person, that's kind of your out. Mm-hmm. Now I can actually go have my I'm in reality and I don't like it anymore. Yeah. It's really not that fun. Right. But when I was in my 20s, I thought it was so exciting to watch. Like, that's why I wanted to go to New Orleans the first time. And you bet your ass the first place I wanted to see was the Real World house.
Yeah.
Anytime I've gone to different places, I wanted to go to Jill Zarin's fabric place in NYC. Jen doesn't know what I'm talking about.
I have no idea.
You love Jill Zarin.
I just glazed over.
So I'm going to take something from Asim Hanaf, who did a TED Talk on reality TV being a force for good and social change in June of 2014. So Asim has spent the past 2 years at the time, so now he's been there. But he went to Egypt, and which was in the middle of a revolution in 2014.
The Arab Spring.
To create the first reality TV program to promote entrepreneurship and social activisms. Basically, contestants go around the region to find others in different neighborhoods that want to create the same social change project they're interested in, and they seek project support from government to launch these projects. And people watch it and get activated and get excited. And many people don't have access to the internet, but they do have access to TV. If you wanted to go back and look at the show he created, it's called El Mashru 3, which I think is part of the name. But Asim's thought is, can we make reality TV a genre to bring out positive points? Whether we like it or not, it reaches millions and billions of people who are glued to this form. Yes, it's addictive, but it also could be influential.
Yes.
And it can create strong bonds of episodic, this is all words from him, episodic content where you build connection with the characters for a long time. Audiences relate more to real life situations with familiar people and locations. It can be used as a tool for learning, and that it can deliver knowledge and information in a light and entertaining way as part of that person's narrative.
All right.
And it can create role models. And I'm going to take another TED Talk that I found by Andy DeHart. He did a TED Talk. He's a publisher and writer of realityblur.com and director of journalism at Stetson University in Florida. And he believes that reality TV has a lot of power, actually.
Yeah.
And its ability to teach us about collective human experiences. And he talks about the Loud family.
Oh, interesting.
And seeing an openly gay person and watch the parents, Pat and Bill, decide to get a divorce on camera.
Wow.
And that was pretty big then. And, now what would that look like? But our world has changed and is ever changing. And to the extent that the ability to communicate and express so many different things now, our media does allow us that, and our media allows us that.
Yeah.
So again, giveth, taketh away, as you say. But I love what he brings up in his TED Talk. He talks about Mr. Rogers, who did, I think, reality kids programming.
Yeah.
Because he'd break the third wall.
Yeah.
And he'd look at you in the eyes. And he talks about that in his TED Talk, that you felt like he was saying to you, you matter. There's nobody else like you in the whole wide world, and you're good just the way you are.
Oh,
right?
I love you.
I said that to your little boy this evening, and he was like, okay.
Yeah.
But in his
Mr. Rogers does not hit the same like it did for us. I showed Liam Mr. Rogers, like, what the fuck is this shit?
Really?
Like, this stuff is gold. I'm like crying in the corner.
Come on. We're gonna have to make him like it.
He's gonna be a convert. Yeah.
Well, so in 1969, he did. Mr. Rogers did testimony in front of the Senate of the power of television, and that he actually said you don't have to let it reach the lowest forms of our darkness to get ratings. Quote from Mr. Rogers: "We deal with such things," this makes me cry. "We deal with such things as the inner drama of childhood. We don't have to bop someone over the head to make drama on the screen." So can we change how we look at reality TV, Jen?
Yes.
Can we make it more critical and compassionate? And he talks about, this is still from the Andy DeHart from the TED Talk. He says, can we do the friend test? If you're watching any show, especially reality, imagine that person is actually your friend. And I think you should do this in life.
Yeah.
Imagine the people who you're watching are actually having to deal with these things in their daily life, and you're having to listen. How would you feel about these depictions of them? Would you treat them as objects? Would you mock them? Would you judge them? And he talks about the concept of trust, and that real reality TV is different than fiction. Yeah. There's consequences to these real people. And, we need to trust TV that we watch. And we need to trust any media that we watch. We need to trust news that we watch. Is it actually, I know, right?
I know.
The morning show, kind of, spoiler alert, the morning show really takes this form of what are we doing here? We actually are supposed to be doing this because it helps people.
Right.
And I think that's what we're talking about with the reality TV show. Are the producers, do they have the best interests of not only the participant, but the viewers? And are they going to keep them emotionally and physically safe and give them a great experience that they wouldn't necessarily have otherwise?
I feel like it's exploitation, and it's for the purpose of making money.
Yes.
And it's heighten the drama and, exacerbate and enhance this disagreement.
Yeah.
And this is what you're going to be doing.
For entertainment.
And that's what I'm going to talk about next. How much of it is actually real? It's funny. When I Googled reality, it's not. No. When I Googled reality TV myths, there were so many articles that came up from real estate companies, because there are so many reality television shows that focus on real estate, like Selling Sunset. So they are like, oh my God, our business is going to be impacted by this because everybody's going to expect things to go a certain way and look a certain way.
It doesn't happen.
So I found something from Business Hab, whatever the fuck that is, probably on some FBI watch list now. But according to this article, they said many unscripted shows have strict rules and have specific guidelines that contestants must follow. This includes everything from what they can eat and when they must sleep. Shooting schedules are extremely tight, with contestants sometimes filming upwards of 20 hours a day. Ugh. Contestants, or whatever you want to call them, are faced with sleep deprivation, dehydration, anxiety, lack of food. Some unscripted shows are so demanding they've been known to lead to mental health issues. We know that. Editing process is long and drawn out. Some shows will take a month to edit a single episode, which if this were reality TV, it wouldn't be necessary to do that many edits. True reality TV, rather. Many unscripted shows have strict rules about what can and can't be edited out of an episode. Editing in unscripted shows is a long, tedious process that's done by multiple editors. So you have multiple people's perspectives on what should and should not be in a particular scene or show to create a specific narrative. They're all involved, right? And this is what's going on behind the scenes. But I alluded to this earlier, there may be hope, because statistic.com taught me that. This is from November 2018. They taught me that 61% of surveyed adults in the U.S. believe that what actors say in reality TV shows is mostly based on script, with just 18% saying that they thought most of the spoken content in such shows was largely unscripted. So, maybe viewers don't necessarily believe that what they're watching is true, but that doesn't mean that some viewers aren't consuming too much of something that is, like all amazing things, relatively harmless in small amounts, but dangerous or bad for you in large amounts. So, I read an interesting article about how reality TV satisfies our need for comfort, but also our love of adventure at the same time, which is what you were talking about.
Yes.
It's kind of cool. But certainly it's no substitute for going out and doing real cool shit.
Yeah.
And if you're watching so much of this stuff that you're feeling isolated and insecure, you're not doing yourself any favors. It might be downright harmful. So, Carolyn, as we're fond of saying on this show, as we said 100 times in this episode alone, moderation is cool. Can we talk a little bit more about what happens psychologically when we do binge?
Yes. Well, it's a guilty pleasure. I think a lot of people will even say, and is pleasure good or bad, right? Yeah. Hedonism, right? It depends. But we do know from MRIs, which it's a magnetic mechanism that tracks when oxygen-rich blood enters parts of our brains. So you can basically measure and observe what centers in your brain that we know through brain mapping are getting blood when a stimulus is observed.
Got it.
And so in this case, we're looking at reality TV show. So, two Washington Post journalists, Hannah Jewell and Anna Rothschild, did a review in 2018 of how TV and reality TV specifically affects your brain.
Okay.
And kind of, again, I hate to say I figured, but, areas get blood flow, like the amygdala, which is a center of your brain associated with strong emotions, specifically anger and rage. So I'm laughing because it's my mom's watching, polygamous shit. And I'm like, why are you watching
Her
this?
amygdala's activated.
It's your firing.
It's your reptile brain.
Well, and what's funny is my mom's not a very angry person.
No.
But this gives her an outlet to be really
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
This man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, go mom.
Yeah.
But then, again, you're getting too much of that. That's not going to be a good thing. But, again, you're getting that emotional rush. You actually will see your blood pressure spike. You will see things happen. That is an actual thing. And again, whatever the stimulus you're looking at, I don't think that's like saying, well, the news. I can't watch the news half the time because it stimulates my amygdala too much and I don't need that shit.
No.
But you also get something called your striatum, which is where pleasure and addiction are getting lit up.
Yep.
So, again,
I'm addicted to rage.
I'm addicted to rage.
I really am too.
Rage, but I'm too poor to rage in the rage rooms. I'm just going to go to Goodwill and buy some china. I'm not paying a rage room to let me $20 a plate.
Dude, let's just go to your place. All my
rage in our backyard
old stuff that we're just going to donate or trash. Let's just get a bet and go crazy, bro. I'm down. I'm creating my own rage room. I'm probably going to hurt myself.
I know. We'll have to get
definitely getting tetanus. Yeah. I need a tetanus shot rather.
Yeah. But, I think it's hard to just say one thing does that. I never like when something gets censored to the point where ooh, well, reality. Because again, to quote Cher Horowitz from Clueless, if you're going to delete violence, you're going to have to get rid of the news.
Yeah.
So, and mankind is violent. So you can't necessarily get rid of that. But, again, if you are more prone to that, like I said, there were times where I couldn't handle watching certain shows because it was too much and I have to be in the mood for that. And that's when I would watch the Great British Baking Show. So I can hear them talking lovely accents.
Yeah.
So, okay. So but more importantly, so we know the viewers are going to see this stuff and again, we know all the dangers of media and what that does, or hopefully you do. But what about the mental health of the participants themselves?
Yeah.
We have not really touched on that. And there is countless articles about reality TV stars committing suicide in the last decade and having pretty violent stuff happen, bullying, pretty depressive mental health things happening. And what you'll often wonder is, okay, well, how do they screen these people? They put, again, when I auditioned for American Idol,
tell me about the behind the scenes process.
But, you went through and you auditioned, and you did stuff, and they talked to you, and you were getting assessed, but they weren't doing clinical screenings. But they, just so you know, they are screening participants before they go on air.
Yeah.
But for how long? So when I bring someone into a room and I'm asked, and again, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm never going to do clinical assessments, but when you're just wanting to come in and do therapy, that takes rapport, that takes time. There's ethics, there's boundaries, and it's all in an effort to promote duty of care.
Okay.
And that's a term. So the question is, do producers have that same duty of care? Well, like I said, a psychologist will assess candidates before they go on reality TV show, but how much in depth can it really go?
Yeah.
And how much will the individual actually bring up about their early life experience and their traumas? What would they be willing to disclose? Do they even have enough awareness to say something?
Yeah.
And would they even over or under tell in order to get on the show? And is it ethical for someone to use what is said to create drama for the purpose of entertainment? And, you saw that, and there's been many reality TV shows where you're, again, like we talked about Anna Nicole, where you're watching something going, this just seems wrong. Shouldn't someone step in at some point? Someone is being bullied.
Right.
Someone is being abused.
Exploited.
Someone is having racist things said to their face.
Yeah.
This is not okay.
Right.
But it's reality TV. So do we pull it? Or is this for ratings? And I think to me, that's unethical.
Yes.
But, again, when you look at documentary filmmaking, there's a different framework. And
that's different. They're telling a story. And of course, it depends on who the documentarian is as to whether or not it's going to be a truthful recanting or telling of whatever the story is. But I look at documentaries as different. Like, yes, it's reality, right? But
there's different ethics around it.
Yes, absolutely.
And there's different rules. And I don't know that we have that in reality TV
I don't think
show
we
because
do.
that's not what's going to sell.
Yeah.
And so, the other thought too is, Andy Warhol always says, everyone wants their 15 minutes of fame.
Sure.
I always thought it was 2 minutes of fame, but I guess you get 15.
Yeah, you get 15.
So we know that there's fame seekers, and we know that there's this desire to get recognition, desire for validation, and we want that from outside sources. And when this goes away or turns on them, it can be really detrimental. And I think a lot of people see reality TV and show, oh, well, I'll just do that.
Yeah.
I'll become a reality TV star and then I'll be fine. I'll make a brand. And I'll do something. The Kardashians did that, and that was great. Yeah. Good for them. I applaud you. You look at a lot of different reality TV shows and see how that's happened. That's difficult. That's like saying you're going to become the next Taylor Swift.
Well,
this is not that easy.
This has influenced the way that young people think about career trajectory and career paths. And I know this from experience of 5 years of working with young adults in workforce development, and this focus on, being YouTube famous, and I'll just do this and not wanting to have a career. And it's like, you can do all that stuff. Yeah. Like I'm not here to shit on your dreams. Yeah. Do that, but also be able to keep a roof over your head and feed yourself and not have to stay in, a toxic situation with your parents or guardians who are, this is not a good place for you.
Well, and are you mature enough to withstand what's going to happen when people, again, what movie stars didn't have to deal with early on was trolling. Yeah. Or I could look at my People magazine, but I wasn't writing to the editor and talking about,
everything happens in real time.
This is happening in real time, and it's horrific what is happening, and it does impact people's mental health.
How could it not?
It impacts the people that you're talking about, and I don't think that's good for you.
No,
I don't think even at a point where I stopped watching shows because all I was doing was shit talking the people.
Yes,
and that doesn't feel good to me. That's not who I want to be.
It's not a good place to be.
No.
We're constantly in what I think is a negative space.
Well, then it's like, why am I watching this? Why am I doing this? If all I'm doing is it's like my mom. Sorry, Mom, I keep picking on you, but it's like, mom, if you don't like this, stop watching it. Well, why are you doing this? This is awful. Do something else.
We're not saying that anger is not a valid emotion, but if you're watching things that are making you angry and you're watching them purely for that reason, maybe it's not a good thing.
Maybe mirror that, to go back to my first comment, mirror that back to yourself and use that and talk about that. But I don't know. I just think it's a slippery slope.
It is. Yeah, I know. That's an easy way to get out of things. But we really need to get out of this because we've been talking way too long. So, our final thought in the spirit of Jerry Springer, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be entertained. Are you not entertained? I mean, early man watched Fire for entertainment, for God's sake, which I think
is very entertaining.
It's entertaining, but it's also a great analogy for reality TV or any TV for that matter. It can be useful and informative, providing metaphorical warmth and comfort, but it can also burn your ass.
That's beautiful, Jen. You're such a good
I'm a better writer than I am a speaker, because clearly I'm tripping all over my goddamn words.
I love that.
So, thanks. Oh, I hate the snaps, and you know it. White people snapping as affirmation. I can personally attest, though, to the feeling of, the need to change myself. My hair, lose more weight, buy higher heels after watching shows like Selling Sunset. It's insidious. All of a sudden, I'm texting my hairstylist and saying, you know what I think I want? And I'm like, it's this goddamn show. But, as someone who loves interior design, like we've talked about, I gleaned a lot of insight and knowledge from shows like Rehab Addict. So the good and the not so good. But as the subject matter experts we've quoted throughout this episode have pointed out, not all reality TV is created the same. If you're into the drama-driven, often mean-spirited shit, ask yourself what the appeal is. And if you're watching so much of it that it's influencing your daily interactions, that's probably problematic. So, and again, this is important. Remember, most of these people aren't even being their authentic selves. So try to see through the Hollywood bullshit and resist emulating the unkind things that are so often depicted 100%. In reality TV. But shit, if you want to knock down a wall in your house and fucking like install some tile, by all means, there's plenty of good reality TV shows. See, I'm putting like value. There you go. I whatever love it. On it. But enjoy. Yeah. Anyway, watch some TV, you guys. I'm gonna go do that after I take a piss.
All right.
We'll see you next week.